silence a few seconds longer than comfortable. "This property," I said finally, "is not part of Lakeside Bluffs." "Oh," she said brightly, as if she'd anticipated that line and had practiced her response. "Yes, we're aware. However, due to adjacent ecological risk," I held up a hand. "Stop." Their smiles froze. "You have 5 seconds," I said calmly, "to step off my property line and keep walking. At 6 seconds, I stop being polite." The man blinked. The woman swallowed. Both stepped back without waiting for second number 2. They retreated down the road in a hurry, pastel polos fading into the distance like melting sherbet. But their presence wasn't the point. They hadn't come to inspect anything. They'd come to test the boundaries, to see how far they could lean before I leaned back. They got their answer. But just as the wind never blows from one direction forever, HOA pressure never arrives from only one angle. The second knock came that afternoon. Not on my gate this time, on my piece. I just sat down with a glass of cold Sauvignon Blanc when that wind shifted again. A shadow crossed my porch. No knock, no greeting, just a presence. And there he was, Greg Wallace, standing on the county sidewalk like a gargoyle waiting for permission to breathe fire. Arms crossed, jaw tight, sunglasses on even though the sun had dipped behind the hills. He didn't say anything at first, didn't need to. He just stood there, letting me see that he had watched the volunteers retreat, like a general inspecting the battlefield after scouts report back. "Your attitude," he finally said, "is causing problems." "For who?" I asked. "For the community." "That community isn't mine. It affects you." "No," I corrected. "You're affecting me." That made his nostrils flare. A full quiet second ticked by. Then he stepped forward, still technically on public ground, but close enough that I could smell the faint trace of peppermint he used to mask stale coffee breath. "These inspections," he said, "they're going to keep happening until you cooperate. I don't cooperate with trespassers. You don't get to choose." I raised my glass slightly, as if toasting the stupidity of that statement. "Greg," I said softly, "a man who thinks he has authority is one thing. A man who needs authority, that's something else entirely." His jaw snapped shut. The remark hit him deeper than he expected, probably because it was true. He took a step back, pointed at my land, and said, "We'll be back, and next time, it won't be volunteers." He walked off, boots thudding like punctuation marks. But what he didn't see, what he couldn't see, was that I wasn't watching him go. I was watching the phone in his hand, the way he kept checking it, the way he tilted it toward his chest to hide the screen, the way his thumb hovered just above the edge, like someone messaging him instructions in real time. And then it hit me. Greg wasn't acting alone. He wasn't planning. He was following. Someone else was pulling strings, someone who understood bureaucracy better than Greg ever could, someone who had something to lose. That suspicion turned into certainty. That evening when I checked my mailbox, sitting inside, perfectly folded, perfectly centered, was a letter printed on thick HOA stationery. Embossed logo, gold trim, signature at the bottom, Karen Manning, HOA president. The contents? A masterpiece of euphemistic garbage. Due to geographic adjacency and increased safety concerns, your property has been provisionally designated within Lakeside Bluffs' expanded observation perimeter. Cooperative compliance is expected. Non-invasive assessments may occur as needed. Translation: we made up a perimeter, you're inside it, and we're coming. I didn't crumple the letter, didn't curse, didn't call a lawyer. I simply folded it once, slid it into my evidence drawer, and poured myself another half glass of wine, because now I knew the truth. Greg wasn't the storm. He wasn't even the thunder. He was just the wind, the kind that blows right before the sky cracks open. And the crack was coming. The night everything changed wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It didn't even start with a sound. It started with a shadow. A soft one, barely a ripple across the eastern row of vines. I was closing the tool shed, hand still on the lock, when I caught it from the corner of my eye. A figure crouched low, moving with just enough caution to tell me he thought he was being careful. I didn't shout, didn't reach for the light switch. Years as a detective taught me one rule. If someone wants to think they're unseen, let them. They show you more that way. By the time I reached the fence line, the figure was gone, slipped back over the ridge toward the road, but he had left something behind. Jammed halfway into the side panel of my exterior security camera was a small black USB stick. Cheap plastic, no markings, no label. The kind of tool amateurs think professionals use. I didn't touch it with my fingers. Pulled a pen from my pocket and levered it out gently, letting it drop onto a clean cloth. Back inside the house, I powered up my old investigation laptop, the one with no Wi-Fi card, no Bluetooth, and no mercy for malware. I plugged the USB in. What popped up made my jaw tighten, not in surprise, but in confirmation. Malware, crude but dangerous if you didn't know what you were looking at. A program meant to disable local cameras, reroute feeds to a third-party server, overwrite recordings, and allow remote live access. It wasn't designed by someone smart, just someone cocky. Greg. It had his fingerprints all over it, even if there weren't any physical prints. Most people in my position would have deleted it, reset their system, maybe called a lawyer, but fury makes you sloppy, and lawyers take too long. So, instead of shutting the door, I opened it wider. Right then, the honeypot took shape. Clean, simple, elegant. A trap tailored to Greg's ego. He wanted to see something incriminating, then I'd give him something he couldn't resist. I spent the next morning preparing the stage. I positioned a few crates near the back of the shed, stacked just so. Had my vineyard assistant Toby help me lift a couple heavy bags onto the tailgate of the truck. We talked in low voices, loud enough for a microphone from a hacked camera to catch, quiet enough to sound private. The bags were filled with powdered yeast nutrients, white as snow, high-grade organic fertilizer, and sealed boxes of specialty wine reagents, completely legal, totally harmless. But under the right lighting, they looked like contraband. Then, just as the sun dipped low, we ran the scene. I made sure the hacked camera had a perfect angle. I stepped into frame, lifted one of the bags, and said, deliberately, casually, "Make sure these go before sunrise. We don't want anyone asking questions about that white powder." Toby caught on instantly. Smart kid. He nodded, playing along like he'd done this 100 times. "Got it, boss. No one will see a thing." Perfect. I didn't overdo it. That's where amateurs fail. Greg wasn't looking for Hollywood. He was looking for something to confirm the story he already wanted to believe. A few half-heard phrases, dim lighting, suspicious movements. That's catnip for a man like him. When we finished, I locked the shed, killed the porch light, and let the cameras do the rest. Around midnight, the hacked feed came alive. I didn't need to see the monitor on Greg's end. I could imagine his face perfectly. Widened eyes, shallow breath, ego lighting up like a Christmas tree. The sudden thrill of thinking he'd uncovered something huge. Greg wanted a victory. A big one. Something that would make him feel like a sheriff again, instead of a bored HOA heavy with a fake badge and a fading reputation. So, I gave him a crime, a fake one, a carefully staged one, and he bit. Hard. At 12:43 a.m., my router log flashed a new entry, a foreign device connected to my internal network. Same MAC signature as the past several nights, but this time, it stayed connected longer. 7 minutes, then 10, then 13. A man obsessed. Finally, at 1:02 a.m., the connection dropped. I leaned back in my chair, letting the quiet hum of the server fill the room. It was done. Greg had seen exactly what I wanted him to see. He would move next, and he would move too fast. Because men like Greg, men who crave authority after they've lost it, don't verify, don't double-check, don't think. They act. And when they act without thinking, they walk straight into the trap. My trap. The vineyard outside rustled softly in the night breeze. Somewhere out there, 5 blinking cameras stared into the darkness, believing they were the hunters. But the truth was simple. They weren't watching me. They were performing for me. Every step Greg took now, he would take with confidence. And confidence is the easiest weakness to exploit. There's a certain kind of knock that doesn't belong in the day. A night knock. Soft, uneasy, not meant to scare, meant to plead. I heard it around 10:47 p.m. Not the front door. Not the porch. The side gate. The one no one ever uses unless they're lost or desperate. I set down my book, slid the safety off the porch light, and stepped outside. A figure stood just beyond the gate, one hand raised like he was afraid to put it down. Pastel HOA polo. Breath quick. Eyes darting down the road. Travis. I'd seen him before. Clipboard guy, mid-30s, always sweating through his collar at HOA meetings. The kind of man who wanted to blend in so badly he made himself conspicuous. He flinched when the porch light hit him. "Derek," he whispered, "can we talk?" I studied him a second. He wasn't here to pick a fight. He was shaking too much for that. I opened the gate and motioned him in. He stepped inside like he was crossing a border checkpoint. "What's going on?" I asked. He wrung his hands, actually wrung them, like a kid caught cheating on a test. "They're going too far," he said. "Greg, Karen, the whole damn board." I crossed my arms. "Define too far," he swallowed hard. "It's surveillance, more than you know, more than they told the residents." He looked like a man forcing himself to spit out poison. I stayed quiet, letting him speak. "Silence works better than pressure," he continued, voice trembling. "Greg's been watching your property for weeks, live monitoring. He's got a whole setup in his garage, screens, notes, files. I saw it. I wasn't supposed to, but he forgot to close the door all the way when I dropped off some paperwork. There it was, the first crack in the dam." "What kind of files?" I asked. "Everything," he whispered. "Schedules, screenshots from your cameras, logs, even notes about your visitors." I kept my breathing steady, but inside, a cold wire tightened. "And Karen?" I said. Travis looked around my porch like he expected someone to leap out of the shadows. "She knows," he said. "She pretends she doesn't, but she knows. And Greg has something on her, something bad." He hesitated, hand trembling at his side. "That's why I'm here." I didn't rush him. After a long moment, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, creased and damp from sweat. He handed it to me with both hands, like it was radioactive. I unfolded it slowly. A password, a login URL, a note, internal cloud storage, do not delete. I looked up. He nodded frantically. "It's Karen's, the one she uses for HOA contracts, vendor bids, private emails. There are files in there that don't match the official records. Missing money, off-the-books payments, some of them go straight to Greg." A cold, quiet moment passed between us. He wasn't lying. He wasn't brave enough to lie this badly. I folded the paper neatly. "Travis," I said, "why bring this to me?" His answer was barely a whisper. "Because the rest of them, they listen to Greg. They're afraid of him, afraid of crossing him, afraid of what he'll do with whatever he's got on Karen. And you?" His throat tightened. "I'm afraid too. But I'm more afraid of where this is going. Greg's not stable, Derek. He talks like he still has a badge, like he's the sheriff of some frontier town. He thinks you're a threat, a danger to the community." I almost laughed. "I grow grapes," I said. Travis shook his head violently. "That's not how he sees it. He says you're non-compliant, unpredictable, potentially dangerous. He's building a case, a reason. He wants an incident, something big enough to justify intervention." He clenched his fists. "And Karen won't stop him, because he has leverage. She approved vendor bids last year, illegal ones, double payments, kickbacks. If that gets out, she loses everything. So she lets him do whatever he wants." A wind moved through the vineyard, rustling the leaves like a whispering crowd. I stared at the man in front of me, sweaty, terrified, trying to hold himself together. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even a brave man. But tonight, fear pushed him to honesty. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Travis blinked rapidly, as if he hadn't actually thought that far. "I want it to stop," he said. "I want someone to do something. And you're the only one Greg can't intimidate." I let out a slow breath. "Travis," I said quietly, "you just stepped into a very dangerous place." He nodded. "I know." Another gust of wind moved through the vines. "You need to go home," I said. "Act normal. Don't talk to anyone. Not a word. Not a hint." He swallowed hard. "And Derek?" "Yes?" "I never came here. You never saw me." I held his gaze. "For your sake," I said. "That's exactly how it happened." He slipped out the side gate and vanished into the dark, his footsteps quick, almost frantic. I watched until the night swallowed him whole. Then I unfolded the paper again. The password sat there quietly. A key, a confession, a spark waiting for a match. Greg wasn't just watching me. He wasn't just harassing me. He was building a narrative. But now, I had the first thread that could unravel his entire web, and I intended to pull it. I've been raided before, real raids, federal warrants, drug houses. Those nights had a rhythm, shouted commands, boots hitting pavement, the metallic clatter of gear when adrenaline outruns caution. This raid didn't sound like any of that. It started with a strange stillness, almost peaceful. I was hosting a small evening BBQ, just 12 people, all friends or longtime clients, eating ribs under the arbor lights while blues music drifted softly from a speaker. The vines rustled in the warm night breeze. The fire pit snapped, glasses clinked. It was a good night, the kind of night I built my life around. Then the lights came, red and blue, washing over the vineyard rows like the sky had suddenly started breathing lightning. 2 cruisers first. Then a black tactical van grinding down my driveway, kicking up dust like a storm of gravel. The music died. Every conversation died with it. My guests stepped back instinctively, hands raised slightly, eyes wide. I stayed still, watching the vehicles roll to a halt, watching the doors fling open, watching the officers pour out, hands hovering near their weapons like they'd been briefed for a cartel bust. One young cop stepped forward, voice trembling just enough for me to hear it, even over the engines. "Sir, we received a tip about illegal alcohol sales and possible narcotics activity on the property." Behind him, the tactical van door slid open, fast, and there he was, Greg, standing like a man ready to announce a promotion he hadn't earned. He pointed straight at me, shouting something to the officers I couldn't quite hear. Probably trying to play commander, trying to claim the raid as his idea, trying to catch the spotlight he'd been starving for all his life. I raised my hands just enough to show I was cooperative. Then I spoke calmly. "Officer, unless you're here for pulled pork and Merlot, you've been lied to." My guest snorted nervously, half fear, half disbelief. But the young officer wasn't the one who mattered now, because from the back of the group, pushing past 2 tactical guys, came a familiar face. Andy Morales. Smart, level-headed, the kind of cop you want on a dark call at 2 a.m. A man I trusted. His eyes scanned the scene. My friends, the food, the wine, the complete lack of chaos. Then he saw me. "Derek?" he blurted out. "What the hell?" "Ask your caller," I said. Andy turned to the officer beside him. "Who logged the tip?" "Anonymous," the officer replied, "but it came through internal channels, marked priority." Andy's eyebrows lowered. He knew exactly what that meant. And right then, Greg moved. He lunged forward toward the stack of covered barrels beside my shed. Barrels I had intentionally staged for the camera honeypot trap 3 nights earlier. Barrels Greg had watched through the malware his people smuggled into my cameras. He shoved past 2 officers, shouting, "It's in here! I saw him moving it! Open these damn bags!" "Greg, wait!" I barked. Too late. He grabbed a box cutter from his belt, jammed the blade into the top of the nearest canvas bag, and ripped downward with all his weight. A massive cloud of fine white powder blasted upward, straight into his face. It coated his hair, his clothes, his open mouth. He stumbled back, sputtering, coughing like he'd just inhaled a bakery. I stood with my arms crossed. "Careful, Greg," I said levelly. "That's premium fermentation yeast. You breathe too much of that, you'll end up growing mold in places you don't want to talk about." A few officers tried not to laugh. A few failed. Greg wiped at his face, smearing the white powder into streaks across his cheeks like some deranged clown. Rage contorted his features. "Arrest him!" he screamed, pointing at me with a trembling powder-covered hand. "He's hiding drugs! I saw the footage! I saw it!" Andy stepped forward. "What footage?" Greg froze, but only for a beat. The footage from his property cameras." Andy stared at him harder. "Greg, how would you have access to his private security feed?" No answer. Just the growing awareness spreading across the officers' faces. The silence deepened.